I must begin our discussion of XRP by quoting Digital Asset Investor. Crypto is on the verge of leaving the Wild West. Listen to this out.
The only regulatory taste in crypto is for the four, CFTC regulated assets, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and XRP, which are on the CFTC. But otherwise, crypto is a complete Wild West and has been since the beginning. So these exchanges can do whatever they want. So I think we've got the first turning, which is the market structure bill. Loomis's market structure bill, probably going to be voted in, she said, before Christmas, starts in September probably. And when they start doing that, they're going to start to put the same regulatory rules on TradFi onto the crypto markets.
And by the way, you can look at tokens that have been around for nearly 9 years, like XRP, and their inflation has been through the roof for nearly 10 years. And it continues with 50 billion tokens in escrow. They dump it every quarter like crazy. So it is an important factor to look at. But if you can get staking rewards that are higher than inflation, you shouldn't be concerned. And you're right, is to incentivize the validators on the network.
Have you noticed that they must always bring up the escrow? The majority of people in this field would also contend that the majority of that escrow is already spoken for, but they are unaware of and silent about the fact that Ripple strategically uses that escrow. Some of that escrow, the BIS, the IMF, and so forth, will go to the United States. However, Ripple also wants to turn into a bank. As everyone onboards to the XRP Ledger, they may be transacting through that liquidity pool, which might be locked away like a large liquidity pool if Ripple does turn into a bank. On-demand liquidity would be supplied by the liquidity pool. Additionally, Black Swan Capitalist discusses how the majority of cryptocurrency will vanish. Listen to this out.
It was roughly around 10 to 15 projects that would ultimately survive. And you're talking about the infrastructure, and that's the distributed ledger technology. That's the investment. That's where their vested interest is. It's not so much the speculative nature and all the leverage out there. And it's not about the noise. It's about the technologies that provide the infrastructure value.
I have a saying, sorry about that, but I have a saying where, when we have these technologies coming out, it's really just study history. It's actually quite interesting. And I know when I say the 1840s, I always look to people's eyes and say, oh my God, is he talking? But the steam engine, it was a crazy thing. I mean, we could all of a sudden travel across the world with the locomotive, and you could start having manufactured processes with machines and so on. It's crazy thing. Electricity coming out 1920s and so on, and every time you have these big tech things coming, technology advances coming out, you will see that there is a fog of things because people don't really understand it, and I don't get it. I don't see which one of these that are going to. I can guess that it'll be like, as I said, 5, 10, 15 of these that will come out and really shine, and they'll probably be fantastic projects, and 10 years down the road we'll all say, why didn't we see it was that one? Because we should have, and then we could have been billionaires, all of us. Well, but that is the thing. I think there is a fog around this when tech comes out, and it's actually because a lot of people just see, there's interest in this, there's money in this to be made, and then all the shitty things comes in, and that creates that fog around the new technology that actually makes it very, very difficult for us to understand what it's all about. But cut to the core. What is it that will change it? It's down to the technologies down beneath the cryptos. It's not going to be because of WIF or Bitcoin or whatever it's called, and it's not going to be anything with crypto, and it's not going to be DeFi. It's not going. I can promise you that the U.S. will not allow, the U.S. administration will not allow that you have Bitcoin or any other thing will come in and take over the role of the U.S. dollar. And they will not. And it's and when you say that people they will not be able to, I can promise you they will be able to. They'll just say, if you hold it at some point and you use it, you'll go to jail, and then people tend to stop. So they can, and that's why it's the technology, and I don't know which technology, and you probably know more than I do that in terms of what will be happening, but the technology and the fog around the technology creates this confusion, which creates bubbles, and that's where people first lose money. But the real money is to be made from those who can figure out which of these are actually going to make a lot of money down the road.
And for that reason, you put money into XRP. You're investing in the technology that will transfer the world's wealth, because you're investing in the future. Bitcoin operates on a belief system. which is why you don't invest in something that does. It is the conviction that the price will keep rising until the price doesn't increase anymore. Then, all of a sudden, your money disappears, along with your belief system. However, if you are interested in technology, you should pay attention to what he stated about the steam engine and electricity. Our industrial revolution is the reason for this. We are currently experiencing the fourth industrial revolution. Additionally, when you invest in XRP, you are already investing in it. Along with a few other cryptocurrencies, XRP will emerge. The greatest beneficiaries of all emerged from this industrial revolution. Bitcoin is already headed toward oblivion. With the emergence of a new financial system and new technologies, it will not be relevant in any form in the near future. Putting it behind us. And that's what's happening at the moment. You know, even Swift is afraid of XRP because of the FUD around it. Thus, a leading Swift executive targets XRP, claims that enduring the litigation is not a sign of resilience, and their chief innovation officer is saying this. It's not resilience, he added. Compliance isn't about one corporation persuading authorities, and neutral shared governance is necessary because institutions don't want to live on the same rails as their competitors. It ought to be permitted to function. It's about a whole industry coming to a consensus on common standards that are independent of any one balance sheet. The issue with Swift is this. At the end of the day, they could quarrel and say whatever they wanted. They are terrified of XRP and Ripple. For this reason, they are currently doing trials using Ripple, which I believe they have been doing for years. I won't even play this tape, but they all see what's coming, which is why they keep fumbling with it, even though we're only now hearing about it through the announcements. This man is completely deranged. It's the individual who goes by the name Johnny Litecoin. He claims that he has never witnessed an actual XRP transaction. The blockchain statistics are missing. In my opinion, XRP is a psychological trick designed to divert your attention. Additionally, he claims that mining and other energy-free activities are psychological processes. It's useless. How do you generate these concepts? Consider it. You need to wake up and decide that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make a video and I'm going to convince people that proof of work is the future. It is illogical at a time when energy consumption will need to be offset by carbon credits. Right from the start, it's a loser. That is the nature of Litecoin. Then there is this, and these individuals believe that we XRP holders are complete garbage. This is one that you must hear.
And that's why I thought it was important to put together this series of frequently asked questions for Bitcoiners that they can use in the future when deciding which type of bankrupt shitcoiner to hire to clean their toilets. A number of questions here. Why not use XRP, ADA, Cardano, or Hex holders to clean your toilet in the future? Reason number one, cleaning toilets properly is a skill set that probably exceeds the meager cognitive abilities of almost all holders of XRP, Cardano, Hex, and other cryptos. These people may also understand little to nothing about personal hygiene. That's another problem. So they may find the concept of cleaning an external object like a toilet, when they can't even clean themselves, cleaning an external object like a toilet, they may find this concept extremely confusing and frustrating. Remember, these are people who literally believe that the world is going to move to a Hex standard. Reason number two, if you use an XRP holder to clean your toilet, you might also end up catching a social disease from them. So please be careful. A lot of these XRP people are quite creepy.
These folks are really arrogant. Have you ever noticed that? They only see Bitcoin, you know? Their only source of income was Bitcoin. Since their favorite, Michael Saylor, taught them that all cryptocurrencies save Bitcoin are securities, they firmly believe that, and you can't make them change their minds. As a result, they see all other cryptocurrencies as securities. But this is what's going to happen. There will be competition for the top slot. In this cycle, XRP has a very good possibility of flipping Bitcoin. People will continue to reject it as much as they want, but the market capitalization multiplier indicates otherwise, and everyone is now projecting an XRP of 50 or more. These Bitcoin maxis will go out of business after XRP overtakes all other cryptocurrencies. I can't wait for that to occur. Even though we aren't actual persons to them, they nonetheless consider us to be nothing more than toilet cleaners. They believe that no one genuinely owns XRP, and that we are all bots. They're going to have a really unpleasant awakening. I will now play the first scene of this Tom Lee clip. I want you to see one aspect of this, but he's talking about Ethereum reaching $62,000.
Well, here's Ethereum's price since 2018. And as you can see, there's two periods I'm shading here. These are called bases. And in Wyckoff's methodologies, they say the bigger the base, the bigger the breakout. And what they mean by that is that you're creating a lot of potential energy as a stock or a network asset bases, and then eventually leads to a breakout. Well, let's look at that breakout. In 2020, that breakout took place, and Ethereum went from $90 to $48.66, or 54 times increase. Well, the low point here in this base was $13.85. So with this breakout, we're expecting an upside move. Is it potentially 54x? I'm not sure, but that's what happened last time. Another way to think about Ethereum is the Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio. And in our view, the tailwinds I'm talking about argue for an all-time high in this ratio. The 8-year average Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio is 0.04790, and it's currently 0.04032, meaning we're below the long-term average. The all-time high in this ratio was 0.080727. Of course, it started off higher, but I'm talking about the 2021 all-time high. So we think that not only should Ethereum recover to the long-term average, it should probably get to the all-time high ratio and arguably exceed it as we start talking about Ethereum acting as the chain for both Wall Street to build its payment rails and the financial system, as well as AI. So let's think about what that means for price. So I have a grid here. On the left side is Bitcoin price levels, and then going across are various levels of the Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio. Our year-end target, this is from the Fundstrat side, for Bitcoin is $250,000. And if you look at the 8-year average, okay, then you can see the range of prices for Ethereum using this ratio and different levels of Bitcoin. And here's the 2021 high. And as you can see, at a $250,000 Bitcoin, you get to somewhere between $12,000 and $22,000 value per Ethereum token. But that's just a ratio recovery. If you look at the replacement cost of payment rails and the banking system, that gets you to an implied value of Ethereum of around 60,000. And that puts the ratio at roughly 0.2500 Ethereum to Bitcoin ratio. And as you can see, that's how you get to $62,000 per Ethereum token. So plenty of upside. I also asked Fundstrat's Mark Newton for his technical take on Ethereum, and he thinks Ethereum could reach 9,000 by early January. According to him, Ethereum could reach 9,000 in late January, but he also believes that in September, Ethereum could be set to reach somewhere between 5,500 or so.
Consider what transpired with XRP in 2017 and 2018. Since the SEC suppressed XRP in 2021, you cannot base it on that year. The Rippleverse SEC case was still in its infancy, and XRP was not listed on any of the main exchanges. What were people saying in 2017 and 2018 if we were to base XRP on that run, which it appears to be now following? Instead, XRP might rise from a cent to a quarter. It went up to more than $3. What are people forecasting this time? Between 20 and 50, if that were to occur again. However, what if XRP does a 2018 blow-off peak and reaches a price of $200 or $300? That might actually occur right now. Without a doubt, people would say, well, Tom Lee's usually spot on, so I think he's most likely going. We will witness an Ethereum worth $62,000. Although I don't personally see that occurring, he did bring up the point that XRP's base is superior to Ethereum's, which is why I believe XRP will have a huge blow-off top. Will it be able to reach the high price points that customers are considering? For example, I've seen that some folks are now phoning for between $500 and $1,000. Seeing that happen would be fantastic. But before we discuss 3 digits, let's move over $50. As you can see, CZ is the cryptocurrency's top billionaire. But take a look at Chris Lorson, who is at number 6. XRP has a fair potential of making Chris Lorson the richest man in the world. And that might very well happen during this cycle if it does reach these higher price peaks as everyone has predicted. Let's also watch how that turns out. Additionally, here was a fantastic movie from Paul Barron discussing how Ripple is comparable to Fed 2.0. Listen to this out.
And several other assets have started to slide, but that really could change it, is the ETF. Do you think is it more important to have the ETF or the banking license? If you could only have one, what would it be? I think both are going to happen, but which one?
Wow. That's incredible. Now you did that to me, Paul. You made me
It's what's most important.
Well, listen, what I'll say is most important, I believe, is that banking charter and that Federal Reserve master account, because I do believe that Ripple is going to serve as the Fed 2.0 in the new digital on-chain economy. Yeah. And I do believe that, the launch of almost 20 ETFs, we could see that happen in October if they do it. And I do believe we could see 5 to 8 billion inflows in a month or just a few months. And then we have to remember, too, that the market cap myth doesn't work on these assets because these assets have utility. And that's why they're not the same. And then that multiplier effect is just simply for the audience, how much money at any given time it takes to push through the buy and sell walls to move the price up.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So, I think that's a huge impact on this market all the way around.
No doubt. Bottom line is,
He even believes, and I agree with him, that the banking license is more significant than the ETFs because we are the branches if Ripple becomes a bank. And I believe that will eventually result in greater riches that position Ripples into an even stronger location, taking us with it. And this is when it is anticipated that XRP would reach $500 and $2,400. Therefore, they predict that by 2040, it will be $24,400. Before 2040 and 2050, XRP will transcend all of these price points, as you are aware. Within the next 2 to 3 years, the majority of XRP holders will be retired. In the next 24 months, everyone with 1,000 XRP will probably be retiring. Depending on how quickly institutional adoption occurs, it may occur even sooner, bringing us to full-fledged mass adoption. According to David Schwartz's chronology, it will occur by 2027. This implies that institutional adoption and widespread adoption will already be occurring throughout that time period. Because the institutions won't spend any time integrating cryptocurrency at the merchant level, they will take place simultaneously. Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, and other stores will all accept cryptocurrency. For all the normies out there who do not currently own cryptocurrency, it is suddenly legitimate since they accept it. They're seeing people pay with cryptocurrency one after another, and there will probably be incentives to do so as well, which will bring on even more users. In other words, I'm only receiving 1-for-1 if I pay in US dollars. However, if I pay with a stablecoin, I might also receive an additional 2% in cash back on my purchases, in addition to the 4% dividend. Additionally, there can be even greater incentives to use a cryptocurrency, such as XRP, if you're doing so. Most people are already warning you that things will change during the next 24 months. According to Brad Garlinghouse, David Schwartz, and the president, the golden age will start at the end of 2025. As investors, we will achieve that financial independence at this tumultuous moment. It will take place. You only need to keep these coins in your possession. These cryptocurrencies are motivated by their utility. It's just you, that's all. Don't get rattled out, please. All you need to do is be optimistic and patient.